Linear 1 test review. Okay, number 1 says h of x equals 5x minus 1. Find x when h of x equals 29. So the best advice I have is I always write the body of my equation. And I need to realize this is an outside. Okay, it's outside. So inside, remember, this would be h of x equals y. So this is giving me y equals 29, and it's outside of the parentheses, so it's going to stay outside of my equation. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line, and we have to solve for x. So first things first, we always have to get rid of addition or subtraction. So how do I get rid of minus 1? We're going to add 1 to both sides. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. I'm going to bring down my 5x equals, and then 29 plus 1 is 30. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 5. Okay, and I get x equals, well, 30 divided by 5 is 6. This is a show works problem. So you do have to show work on this problem on the test. Okay, look at number 2. It says the total cost y for X tickets to a concert includes a flat fee for processing and a cost per ticket. One customer purchased 4 tickets for a total cost of $160. Another customer purchased 8 tickets for a total cost of $300. Which linear equation represents the total cost in dollars y for X tickets? Well, it doesn't give me enough information to just write an equation, but it does give me 2 points. So we're always going to build a table. Now, this does not say direct variation, so we cannot assume it varies directly. So we're going to plug in our points, and it tells me X is tickets, and Y is my total cost, so Y is my money. So for 4 tickets, I spend $160. And for 8 tickets, I spend $300. Okay, well, knowing that, we can do bottom minus top. We're going to find our slope. So 300 minus 160, use your calculator as you need. Bottom minus top gives me 140. And then again, 8 minus 4 gives me 4. And remember, it's change in y over change in x. So change in y is 140 over change in x is 4. And if I type that in my calculator, I get 35. So my slope is 35. Now, big thing to remember, this doesn't have a 35, this has a 35, and this does. But remember, my slope is always touching my x. So I have to look over here. 35 is touching x, 35 is not. So C is my answer. Now you can check your work in the calculator. Plus sign table. We have 4, 8, 160, 300. And you can do your Y1 squiggle or click your fancy button. Okay, so if I do Y1 squiggle and X1 plus B, it gives me my slope is 35, which is exactly what I picked. So C is my answer. Okay, look at number 3. So remember, this one's asking about functions, and functions is when x cannot repeat. So in a graph, remember you can do the vertical line test, and it should only touch your graph once. And it does only ever touch my line once. So that is a function, and we're looking for what's not a function. Now here, B, this 6 has 2 arrows, therefore it's used twice, which means x does repeat, so that's not a function. Here in the table, I have 2 zeros, so that means this is not a function. And then here I have a 1 and a 1, therefore x did repeat, which means that's not a function. So we circled all that are not a function. Okay, number 4. I have my graph, and it says, what is f of 1? Well, remember, when it's inside, that's giving me x. So I'm going to look on my x-axis for 1, and I'm going to draw up to see the height of that point, and that is a height of 5. Be careful, I know the numbers are kind of hard to read, but you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this gives me x equals 2 because it's inside parentheses, so it's giving me my x. So if I go to 2 and find the height, that one is giving me, I think I drew my line crooked. I'm sorry, y'all. That actually is giving me 8. the one on your test will be a lot more clear. Sorry about that. Here, when it's outside my parentheses, remember that's giving me my y. So I'm going to look on the y-axis now. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And it went over -2. Okay, number 5 says determine the correlation coefficient, which is our R. And anytime we're talking about correlation coefficient, we're talking about a scatter plot. So we're going to do a plus sign table, and we have to type every single point in there. So 61. Ooh, 8. And then double check your points because you never know. Okay, my points are good. So we can click this fancy little button and scroll down, and my R is right here. So 0.89 rounds to 0.90, and it's a positive R. So I know I can cross off my 2 negatives, and I know that it rounds to 0.90. Okay, looking at number 6. Remember, when we talk about causation, it's forced to happen. And this one says, which situation best represents association but not causation? So it's correlated, it's related, but it's not forced to happen. So when more gallons of water are put into an aquarium, the weight of the aquarium increases. Well, if I put more water, it definitely has to increase. So this is force. Therefore, this is causation. And we're looking for which one's not causation. When the amount of time an athlete runs increases, the distance she runs increases. Now, I can see you arguing this one both ways, so let's put a maybe. When the number of spectators at a football game increases, the number of wins at home, the home team increases. This, I don't think the people in the crowd have anything to do with how good our football team does, so I would say this one is not causation. And then let's just double check. When the charge of a cell phone battery increases the number of minutes of the phone, that is causation. So I would say my best choice is C. Okay, looking at number 7. It says the table shows the profit from a school book fair based on the number of books sold. Based on the table, which equation models the situation? So again, we can find slope. So remember bottom minus top. So if I do 275 minus 50, that leaves me to 225. And then 250 minus 100 leaves me with 150. And remember, change in y over change in x. 225 over 100 gives me 225. Oh, 150. Don't listen to me. Might help if I do it correctly. 150. Sorry about that. So 225 divided by 150. See, I make mistakes too. Gives me 1.5. So my only equation that has a graph, an equation with 1.5 as my slope is B. And again, you can do your plus sign table to check your work. Okay, let's look at number 8. Now remember, I told you in class that we changed this point to -1, -4. Okay, hopefully y'all change that in class. And now, anytime, this is what I told y'all, anytime you either both x's or both y's match, I want you to for sure do it by hand, because if the answer is undefined, the calculator doesn't tell you like you think it would. Okay, so remember, we have to do bottom minus top, and I want to remind you how to type this in. So bottom is -4 minus top is -4. So you have to type that double negative. And then 5, bottom number is 5 minus top number is -1. So that gives me 6. And remember, change in y is 0 over change in x is 6. And if I type that in my calculator, 0 divides 6, I get 0. So my slope is A, which is 0. Number 9, the graph of a line shown on the grid. What is the rate of change? So I'm going to pick 2 points, and I'm going to build a table. So this point is -4, 7. And this point is +4, 1. Now, first things first, I want y'all to realize this is a negative slope, so I can cross off my two positives. And we're going to do bottom minus top. 1 minus 7 is -6. 4 minus -4. Double check it. Do not just write 0. 4 minus -4 is 8. So change in y over change in x. I'm going to check it. My calculator gives me a decimal, but we want fractions. It's -3/4. D. Now you can check your work in the calculator. Check your work in the calculator. Okay, look at number 10. Lots of slopes. Okay, the water level in a tank is changing at a constant rate. The graph below, okay, so this is our graph. It says to fill in the blanks. So the water level is either increasing or decreasing. Well, I see it's going down from left to right, so it's decreasing at a rate of, so I need to find my slope. So build a table. Again, you can use your calculator to double check your work. 0, 9, 4, 8. So 8 minus 9 is -1. 4 minus 0 is 4. So -1/4. Well, I said decreases, so that's where that negative comes from. And I don't see 1/4, so let's type it as a decimal because I have a decimal option, and that is my answer. So I don't have to put a negative here because I said decreases, and that's what represents that negative. Okay, and again, you can always check your work in your calculator. Plus sign table. I have the 0.09, and I have the 0.48. I recommend always doing the y1 squiggle instead of the fancy button y1 squiggle and x1 plus b, and it tells you your slope is -0.25, so that is correct. You can check all of these in your calculator like that. So 11 says for linear functions, remember, inside your parentheses is your x, outside is your y, inside's x. So this is just a fancy way of giving you 2 points. So we have the point -1, -9, and -4, -7. So bottom minus top. -7 minus -9 is 2. Bottom minus top is -3. So y over x, change in y over change in x. Therefore, 2/3 is my answer. Negative, not positive. Okay. Here, 2 points are plotted on the grid. Which equation? So again, I need an equation. I'm going to build a table. So this point is -1, 5. And this point is 4, -3. And again, bottom minus top, lots of slope practice. That gives me -8. 4 minus -1 is actually going to give us 5. Use your calculator. 4 minus -1 is 5. Okay, so I have -8 over 5 as my slope. This is -5/8. Not the same, not the same. So C is my answer because I was looking at the slopes here to find my answer. Now, this is also one you could check, plus sign table, but this one's going to look weird. So watch, -1, 5, 4, -3. It's going to put them in decimals, so you have to know how to turn them back into fractions. Okay? So that does match our answer. Okay, let's look at 13. So 13 first, M is my slope. B is my y-intercept where I begin. So B is my y-intercept, which is -2. Okay, M is my slope, so let's find another pretty point. Here's another pretty point. And I'm going to build a table. So I have the point 0, -2, and 3, 0. Now, I will tell y'all confuse those 2 points all the time. So you can type them. 3, 0. Is that the correct spot for that point? Yes. Oop, what did I do? Okay, there it is. Okay, 3, 0 is right there. That's the one I was trying to do. So that worked. Okay, and then I can check 0, comma, -2. So that way you can make sure you did not put them backwards, which is the right point. So we did it right. 0 minus -2 is +2. 3 minus 0 is 3. So my slope is 2/3. Which, if you type to see if it simplifies, it's going to give you a decimal that's repeating. So you're going to leave it as a fraction. Okay, 14 is one that you need to know how to do by hand and show work on. So it's a lot like number 1. So again, anytime I have problems like this, y'all, I'm going to write the body of my equation, 18 minus 3x. And it says find f of -4, which is my x. And it's inside parentheses, so it's going to go inside this piece of the equation. So I'm going to rewrite it 18 minus 3. And instead of x, I'm putting -4. I'm replacing it. So there's no more, no more x, sorry. So knowing that from here, I can type in the calculator. 18 minus 3 parentheses -4, and I get 30. So we like this one better than number 1 because it has less work, but you just have to know where to plug in. Inside parentheses goes inside equation. Outside parentheses, like on number 1, goes outside the equation. Okay, let's flip to number 15. Okay, this one says the graph of a linear function f is shown. So this is like graph f. Which statements, multiple, are true about the graph of the function? There is more than one answer. So function f represents a direct variation. It is linear and it does go through the origin. So it is direct variation. Where the constant of proportionality, that's our k, is 3. Well, remember, the way we find k is y divide x. So I'm going to find a point, not 0, 0. So here's 1, 3. Remember, that's my xy. So I can do y divided by x. So y is 3 divided by 1 is x, and 3 divided by 1 is 3. So this is true. So A is true. The next one says function f represents a direct variation, which it does, with a negative constant of proportionality. Well, from left to right, this is positive, so that's not true. So this is not an answer. I'm going to skip C for right now. It says the y-intercept of the graph is 0, so my y-axis, it does touch in the middle, which is at 0, so this is true. And we're going to talk about these two. So I know if my k is 3, that my equation is y equals 3x. So I'm going to type that on my calculator. And I'm going to realize these are points, y'all. I know this is my x and this is my y. So that's a point 30, 10. So I can type that point 30, 10. And I'm going to zoom out. And that point is not on my line. Therefore, it is not a piece of it. Okay, so this one gives me the point -2, -6. So if I check that one, -2, -6, I get this, which if we zoom in, is on my line. So this is an answer. Okay, 16, we did in class, but just in case, it says varies directly. Anytime I see varies directly, I'm drawing a table on my graph. A table on my paper. Goodness gracious. It says when the value of y is 4, x is -12. So I know that's a point that it gives me. It says what is the constant of variation? Remember, that's my k. Remember, k equals y divide x. And our equation is y equals kx. So I need to find k. Y divide x. So 4 divide -12. I'm going to type that in my calculator. And I get this repeating decimal, which is not an option. So we're going to turn it into a fraction. And I get -1/3. So that is my k. And that is an option. So we used it. Then it says find the value of y. So we're finding y when x is -6. So again, this is when we type what we know. We know our equation is y equals -1/3 x, because I know how to find my equation, y equals kx. And I also know x equals -6. Y equals -1/3 x. Oop, not like that. And I also know x equals -6. I'm going to find where they touch. I already know x is -6, so my answer must be 2. Last but not least, 17. Identify the graph with a 0. This is your x-intercept. So my x-axis, a 0 of 3. So my x-axis is here. So my x of 3. So here's 3, here's 3, here's 3, here's 3. So there's only one graph that touches there, which is A. So we should know A is our answer. But just to prove it, let's also check our y-intercept, because on the test there might be one that has more than one. So I'm going to check. And I need a y-intercept of -1. Oop, I missed, but you get it. -1, -1, -1, -1. So that just proves that A is my answer. Okay, good luck. Show your work on your test. Y'all are going to do great.